Greetings. So just up front, I'm going to say that I may make some mistakes while I'm doing this video because it's kind of sensitive in a weird way. And I will correct it as soon as I remember it. So just think about that for a moment. It's been 9 weeks. 9 weeks and, well, I guess we'll say a day that my mother passed away here in the house. And I still have feelings of guilt, a little bit of insecurity, a little bit of fear as far as what am I supposed to do next. Because, I spent all those years basically taking care of mom. I put my career on the back burner. I did do a couple of things here and there, but, now I've really got to get my mind together and do some things. I've got something that I'm thinking about doing. I mentioned that one on my business YouTube channel, but most of y'all aren't going to be interested in that, so I'm not going to go there. Still, I started to think that there's probably a lot of different things that people don't think about after their loved one passes away, that if they're the ones responsible for taking care of those things, they probably don't know about it until it comes up. And truthfully, if it's anything like what happened to me, there's nobody to tell you what you're going to need to do. So that's what I'm going to try to do today. So I'm going to start off, however, by saying this. If you have feelings of guilt, if you have feelings of loss, if you just feel bad for whatever reason, feel those things. Go through them. Guilt is one of those things, however, that you probably need to figure out how to get past that as soon as you can. I'm still not past it. There's things that I come across maybe at least once a week, sometimes twice a week. I come across something, it's like, oh man, I didn't do that right. And I feel guilty about it. And, my friends and my niece, they all say the same thing, and they're absolutely right. There's some of that stuff, there's nothing you could have done. Mom was in decline. She was never going to get better. Dementia people don't get better. So that feeling of guilt, no. And they even say, you did everything you could. You took care of her. You tried to get her to eat. You kept her clean. You gave her the clothes every single day. You talked to her. You put on certain movies. You put things on, up until those last couple of days, your mom was at least cogent enough to enjoy TV and talk to you a little bit. Sure, most of the time we didn't have true word conversations because mom couldn't really talk as much anymore. But you know what? When she wanted to fuss, then she fussed. And a few days before she passed away was the last time, she said my name. And she always remembered my name to the end. So, you take that stuff and you say, yes, thank you for that. I'm not religious, so I can't say thank God or anything like that. But I will say that I'm thankful that I do have that memory of mom still knowing who I was those few days before she passed away. So I've got that. The second thing that most people aren't really sure about is how do you handle all the financial stuff? For instance, the first thing I had to deal with was the funeral costs. And I had no clue how much that was going to be. I was stunned. My mother's funeral costs came to $8,400. And that was without getting a real funeral, for instance, because mom didn't have anyone that she really knew anymore. So we didn't have a viewing. We didn't have to get a place for her to, to put the body or anything. I wasn't doing any of that. So this was embalming. This was buying the casket. And I didn't know that caskets could go up to $25,000. Whoa, that was not happening. But I got something nice. There's a difference between wood and metal. And it turns out wood costs a lot more. I'd have never thought that. Someone mentioned something about cremation. No, that wasn't happening. Mom already had a burial plot, but it was in another city. So they had to buy the casket ahead of time because you can't transport a body without it being in the casket. So $8,400 for everything, which included the death certificates, because you have to have those for other reasons. So that was interesting. And one of the things you can do if there's an insurance policy is you can basically sign over the insurance policy to them, and then they will take the difference. And if there's something you still owe, they will bill you. And if it's more, than what they're supposed to get, then they'll pay you for that. Well, I didn't know my mother had an insurance policy, so I basically just paid $8,400. I wrote a check for it. And, that may sound strange, but, I've written bigger checks. But, I had to take care of that. And it turned out that Social Security, because she went to the funeral home, they knew within a few days that mom had passed away, and so they immediately stopped benefits. So it took me about another week before I finally called everybody up, and I knew I had enough time, but I called everybody up to say, okay, no more payments, you got to stop everything. And it was interesting because the military said, well, we might need to come back and take some of the money based off of the timing, to which I said, well, I don't know how or why you're going to do that, but you paid it on the 1st, she passed away on the 3rd. Based on everything I've read, that should be fine. But it turns out that they actually did make 2 more payments. They paid on the 1st of October and the 1st of November. I had no clue that there was any kind of payments that came in because I didn't notice a difference in the balance. It's like they paid it and then they immediately took it away, and then they paid it and immediately took away. But anything else that they paid, so the September payment stayed. Then Social Security. That was one of those kind of things where everybody said, well, Social Security is going to take away the last payment. To which I said, well, based on what's written online by the federal government, they don't take that. In other words, they pay you a month behind. So for instance, if mom passed away in August, or let me rephrase that. The payment that came in August was for July for my mother. So if a payment came in September, then that was mom, for August. So mom got the payment in August. They didn't take that one away. Then she got paid in September, but that one they took back. And then they send you something where you fill it out and you put the date down and, you send it back in. And I got the full check back. So they sent back the entire payment that she should have gotten in September for August because she was still alive in August. So that beat all the expectations everyone else said. Most people said, well, you might get a check for some burial expenses of $290. I have no idea where they got that one from. But that all came back to her account. And then she had payments that were coming from dad's pensions. Dad had a couple of pensions. She actually had one, but it was only like $300 a month. That was easy to end. But it also turned out that when I called that one, they said, oh, your mother has an insurance policy, to which I said, she does. I don't have any paperwork saying that she has an insurance policy. They said, yep, she has an insurance policy. So that took 3 weeks for them to send me paperwork. And I filled that paperwork out and sent it back. And then 2 weeks ago, I got a check for that for $10,000. So that covered the burial expenses. So I said, okay, thank you for that. I figured that she did that. Dad had done something like that beforehand, but Dad went through it a different way. So we had paperwork when Dad passed away, but had nothing for Mom. So I thank you for that. And then other check came in for, one of the things I do is I overpay a lot of my recurring bills. So for instance, my phone bill, I overpay that. The wireless bill, I overpay. My insurance, I overpay. Well, Mom's insurance, I was overpaying because my thought has always been, what happens if there's 1 month where I just can't pay any of the bills? I don't want to be over on anything, so I want to make sure that I have another month clear. So got that check. However, they wrote that check to the estate of my mother, which they said, well, you have to have an estate bank account to deposit that to. I was like, what? She didn't have an estate account. Mom didn't have an estate. Well, you have to open an account for that. I said, no, we ain't doing all that. So I called the people for Mom's insurance that I was overpaying, and they reprocessed the check in her name. Remember that, because it could come to something for an estate. Remember that if there is no estate, that you can call them and they will redo the check in the name. They're not going to do it in your name, but they will redo that. So there's those things you have to deal with. You have to remember, for instance, the military could have taken that money from my mother. So you can't close an account, because if you do that, then they come chasing you down and, don't mess with the federal government. So I basically left everything where it was. That still allowed me to pay a couple of bills, because she still had a couple of bills that were outstanding that I still had to pay. So there you go. And it's not as hard as you think. Basically, I called everybody the same day. Took me maybe a little over an hour to talk to everybody. I had to chase some folks down, because you're not really sure. When you call, they say, they give you all these choices. I hate calling businesses these days, because every one of them says, please listen closely because our system has changed. No, it hasn't. Even if it did, what do we care? Just tell us what numbers we're supposed to hit. And, a lot of times these days, they don't give you one of those, if you're unsure where to hit, just hit 0. That's irksome. If you call the phone company and you're not sure, you can hit 0 and you'll get to somebody who will send you the right person. All these other places don't do that anymore. So it's something else you have to deal with. So that was another thing that I had to deal with. I'm good. Now, the lucky thing for me in this instance is that Mom did not have an estate. Someone's going to have to deal with that for me, because I have an estate and my house is in a trust. Luckily, that person's name is with the lawyer, so I'm good there. However, I still had to probate Mom's will, because there's something that I have that's going to come to me, that was coming to Mom, that was going to her mom. It's in the family and it's out of state. So I have to do that. And I had this thing that said it was Mom's will, but I was curious about it because it said copy on it. And I took it out and I looked at it and I saw signatures, but I didn't see Mom's signature on it. So I said, let me see if her lawyer, the guy who wrote this up, is still here. Because he was an older guy when I met him back in, my God, when did I meet him? I think 2013, 2014, something like that. So anyway, I meet with him, or I call him, and he said, yeah, we have the real will. I said, oh, okay. So I had to have him send that to me, because that's the proof that, Mom has passed away. So I got that. And one day next week, because it just came 10 days ago, and I had to go to the post office to sign for it, because he sent it certified. Thank you for that. That's very smart. So now I have to take that, and I have to take the certificate of death. Now, here's the thing about that. If you get those, get at least 10. I got 13 because my mother's cousin, who's a lawyer, said, get 13 just to totally make sure you have enough for everything. So when you get it, look at it. There were 5 things wrong on Mom's certificate of death, with the biggest error being that they had her down as being Caucasian. That wasn't going to go well, because the paperwork that I'm going to have to send to somebody else, they're going to know that she ain't Caucasian, because it can't go to a Caucasian person in this state based on what it is. I ain't telling what it is. Don't need to know. But still, you have to look at that deeply. Now, the lawyer I talked to said, you might need a lawyer locally to go do this for you. I said, really? So I did some research. No, I don't. I just have to go down to the courthouse. I have to take a certificate of death with me along with the original will. And basically, it should take 15 to 20 minutes. Well, after I wait to see how many other people are there. But then I'm good. And this is the same thing for, this is in New York State. I guess in other states, maybe you need a lawyer. In some states, you don't. You know what? We got Google or DuckDuckGo or whatever search engine you want to use, where you can look that stuff up now and find out what you have to do if you have to probate a will. Truth be told, if it wasn't for this thing that's in the family that I have to do, I would not have had to probate the will, because all there was the checking account. And my name's been on the checking account since 2006. So, it was totally covered. It's just these things that you have to, deal with. I've got certain other things. For instance, I donated a lot of her clothes that I bought because my ex brought almost none of her clothes here. So I didn't have any of her clothes. So I went out and bought a whole bunch of clothes. I mean, she brought some, but mom hadn't bought any new clothes in the longest while, and mom had gotten, a little bigger. So I went out and bought, more comfortable clothes for her when she was here. So I got rid of that stuff, and I never knew that there wasn't any other stuff. So donated a lot of that. Ended up donating a lot of, I'll say materials things that she had. For instance, I'd bought all these boxes of nitrile gloves. So I gave away 7 boxes of nitrile gloves, powderless, because I'm allergic to the powder. I donated, different food things that I bought for her that I never opened. I still have some bottles of Glucerna that are in the fridge because I don't know what to do with that. You can't donate it. I'll probably end up throwing it away at some point. I may even drink one, but I'm doubting it, But, you can do that. You can donate certain things. And there's a couple of things that just have to go. The chair mom passed away in, that's got to go. But I need a place for it to go. And my niece is telling me I should not be taking those big heavy chairs and trying to take them in the basement, because she said, and what are you going to do with it? I said, I might need it someday. To which she says, no, that's not why you keep stuff like that. Moving it all around like that, and it's heavy, and it's going to be difficult trying to get it down there. It was probably difficult getting it in the house. To which I remembered that the one chair that we had was brought here by a furniture company, and took 2 guys to get that in. And the other one came that I ordered off of eBay, and it came in 2 different boxes, and you can take that one away, apart, and it was 2 lift chairs, so I could have taken that one apart. I may see, but there's just these things that you have to be prepared for. That, like I said, there was no book that I could go to say, okay, what are the steps I have to take? I just had to think about these things, and most of y'all need to know this. This is going to come up at some point. Trust me on that. If you're responsible for it. Luckily, I'm an only child, and I say that because I've been stunned by hearing how siblings or other family members who did nothing to help all of a sudden show up in the picture wanting theirs. Where's my stuff? What am I getting here? And it can get ugly, and it goes to court, and people fight over these things. It's like, oh my goodness. I've always wanted a sibling, but not anymore. I hate to say that. So anyway, that's just where we're at right now, where I'm at right now. And luckily I've taken care of a whole lot of these things, so it's not anything that I really have to deal with anymore. I hope none of y'all will end up having to deal with it, but most probably you will. And, it's just a circle of life. It's just how things go. Anyway, if you have any questions about any of this stuff, or you want to share, do it. My name's Mitch Mitchell. Hope y'all have had a wonderful weekend.